Hello again, and welcome to the Downtown Church of Christ YouTube channel. Thanks for joining us. Tonight we're going to be studying Darwinism. Did the God of all heaven and of all earth really create everything in 6 literal days? Were we created by intelligent design? Or was man caused to develop over billions and billions of years into what we see today? Does the Bible give us any insight over this conflict with modern secular teaching? And what is it that the Christian should believe on such matters? Does it make a difference at all? Why don't you join us now as Brother Jim Laws leads us in this very important study from the Bible. Let's begin.
Well, I'm glad to be with you this evening. I'm very grateful for the opportunity to be with you once again. I was with you last year, the year before, I believe. Maybe even before that, I can't recall. But it's always a highlight for me to be able to come and visit with you. And as someone coming in through the doors, we're saying, "Oh, I remember you from last year." And my favorite line is, "Yes, it's a face that's hard to forget." And so I am very grateful for your invitation. Thank you. It's good to be with David once again. I always enjoy visiting with him. David and I went to school together a long time ago. And it just seemed like yesterday, David. And now, so much has gone by. We were at the Students' Hardy Graduate School together. And I always think fondly of those days back then, those friends that I made on those occasions. It's always good to be with you and visit with you. I bring you greetings from the Broadway Church of Christ in Tyler, Texas. And good brother was right. We see things just a little bit differently in East Texas. And so we say it a little differently and we see it a little differently. But I'm always very happy to be back in the Metroplex area with this wonderful traffic that you have. And it takes me a minute or so to lie down and relax a little bit after holding and clenching the steering wheel as tightly as I do. But enough warm-up pitches. Thank you for having me, and it's always my privilege to be with you. I've been given the assignment Darwinism. I have to commend you for the very fine topics that you're studying in your Wednesday night series. I think it'll be a very valuable series of studies, and I'm very grateful and thankful that you have interest in these matters and that you're studying them in such a fine way. And we have a lot to consider tonight. We have a lot of material to cover, and we won't be able to do it justice. So if I don't cover the exact point or go over the exact material that you had in mind or you thought about, you'll please understand that it's simply a matter of time and time management. There's a wealth of information on this particular subject and a lot of emotion on this subject. I will try to look at this just as objectively as I can. Of course, I'm coming from a particular background and perspective. I'm coming from a perspective that I know that the great God of the Bible does exist, and that man is a result of the miraculous creative power of Almighty God. And that is the truth of the matter. Anything else is a lie. And that's what I'm going to study with you tonight. The reason that this comes up is because it's such a popular view. There's a lot of people who are concerned about this particular matter of Darwinism. That within itself requires some clarification. I'm going to be dealing with Darwinism. It's a more narrow type of view. You could look at this from the standpoint of chemical evolution. You can look at this from the standpoint of a physical type of evolution. We're going to be looking at it from the standpoint of Darwin's approach to evolution and what he was saying about that. I have several things that I'm going to talk about the matter. He was a naturalist, as your card pointed out. And he won passage on the Beagle, the HMS Beagle, as a naturalist, and began to study the different fauna and animal life that he would experience on that rather lengthy voyage. If you'd like to read about that voyage, when I got this invitation, I decided I'll go back and read about that. It's very interesting reading. The places that he visited, the things that he saw, the notations that he made, makes for very interesting reading for me. He observed the finches. He saw that the finches were a kind of bird that had a soft bill, but the birds that had hard bills had a better chance of survival than the birds that had hard bills, soft bills, and for that reason, he began to formulate, due to his observation of the finches, this matter of natural selection and adaptation, which we want to spend some time talking about tonight. What I want to do is three things. I want to look, first of all, at the background of the matter. I learned a long time ago, if I can understand the background of a man and his position, then that'll put me well down the road toward understanding it better and knowing how to respond to it properly. A lot of times we don't spend time with the background. But we don't want to spend all of our time on the background. We want to look at an evaluation of the man and his position and what we face tonight. But that's not enough either. We want to make proper application to ourselves. How is the church of the Lord to respond to these particular matters? So we've got our work cut out for us this evening. So I invite your undivided attention. I'll try my best not to sound like some old fogey professor up here who's trying to lecture about something that nobody really cares about. I'll try to be as simple as I can, and if I oversimplify matters, please excuse me. For those of you who are experts in this area, please understand that I'm trying to do my best to present a great deal of material in a short amount of time, and at the same time make it meaningful and helpful for our understanding. These are the 3 points of consideration tonight, and it'll take all of our time to do the same. Darwin didn't always start out as a naturalist. Darwin started out as a denominational type of Christian. He wrote his 2 books, which are of major concern for us: The Origin of the Species, which came out in 1859, and also The Descent of Man, which came out in 1871. And of course, it was a journey that he made with regard to his thinking. His father was a medical doctor, and he had a very good education. He was baptized in the Church of England. That didn't really mean much to them then. It doesn't mean much to those now, really, as far as their baptism is concerned. But he had a type of Christian, quote-unquote Christian upbringing. He's buried in Westminster Abbey, which I had the privilege of going and seeing the tomb of the grave there of Darwin in Westminster Abbey. And it is a church building, and it is a type of cemetery. It's filled with the notoriety of people, celebrities of England, the movers and the shakers of the nation and its history are buried there. And Charles Darwin finds his place in the tomb there in the grave of Westminster Abbey. But over time, he rejects Christianity, and he rejects the tenets of Christianity. And once again, I use the term Christianity in a broad, general, denominational sense, you see, not in the sense of New Testament Christianity that means so much to us. He had accepted Paley's view of design, the design argument, and he actually made the point that blind chance really could not be an explanation for anything that happened in the past or anything that could happen in the future. So he starts off as a theist, but as he goes along, he begins to change his particular views until he ultimately comes to this particular statement that you see before you. I don't care what you say, my species theory is all gospel. And that, of course, was made to J.D. Hooker and is recorded for us in Moore, page 211. I'm not trying to give you all the citations and bother you with that, though I do have it. Why the change? And I thought this was interesting, and I'll present just a few moments of consideration about it. Why did he change? Why did he shift to go from this Christian type upbringing to that of a thoroughgoing naturalist? Not an atheist, but a naturalist. He became an agnostic. One of the things that moved him along was the principles of higher criticism. You know, he's living during a day and a time in which higher critics were beginning to look at the Bible in a different way. And they were trying to say that the Bible historically has discrepancies and errors. And that Isaiah, for example, Isaiah wrote part of it, but another redactor came in and wrote something, and then Deutero-Isaiah, and then Tripso-Isaiah, a third Isaiah guy came along, and a redactor later on kind of compiled it all together. And the thinking of the scholastic world at the time had a great deal of influence. Jacob and McGarvey of our brotherhood had a powerful refutation of those particular matters. Not everyone accepted those liberal views, but Darwin did. Darwin also was motivated and moved by a philosopher by the name of Spinoza. Spinoza was a pantheist. He believed that God was in the world and the world was God. Einstein was asked one time about his view toward God, and he said, "My God is Spinoza's God," which means the world is God. And so that was the view that he began to take. And then, of course, he was influenced greatly by the skepticism of David Hume. David Hume had died in 1776, and when our country was celebrating his birthday in 1976, I was celebrating the death of David Hume, 1776. He was quite a skeptic, and he was one which tried to bring doubt upon everything. He's sort of a gadfly. Well, these were the people that influenced Charles Darwin, and they moved him away from this Christian upbringing to more of a deistic kind of approach to things. And he goes along and he begins to say, well, it's deism that really has brought these particular matters about. God created the world and he left it. And he left the world with regard to matters of natural law. The natural laws took over, and that's how we have what we have today. But then he begins to move away from deism, and you have the statement of agnosticism, which basically is where Darwin ends up. Darwin ends up as an agnostic by the end of his time. Now, an agnostic is a person that says, I don't know whether God exists or not. The evidence is insufficient for me to say one way or the other. I don't know if he does exist. I don't know if he does not exist. I'm agnostic about the matter. Now, generally, I found in reading after these fellows, you have agnostics that lean toward theism. They want to believe in God, but they're just not sure whether God does exist or not. They can't say, I know God exists. And then there's some who lean toward atheism. They are agnostic people, such as Bertrand Russell. Bertrand Russell was an agnostic leaning toward atheism. Well, that's what you have here in Darwin. Darwin's agnostic, but he leans toward atheism. I think generally, and more as I grow older, but not always, that an agnostic would be the more correct description of my state of mind. So we wouldn't want to consider Darwin as an atheist, a person who would say, I know that God does not exist. He's asserting that knowledge claim. We would not certainly count him as a theist, one who would say, I know that God does exist. He's asserting that knowledge claim. But he's more agnostic. He's saying, I don't know whether he does exist. I don't know whether he does not exist. I know one thing. The evidence is insufficient to say one way or the other. Therefore, I'm agnostic about the matter. I included this little statement by him, and that is, the mystery of the beginning of all things is insoluble, he said, by us, and I, for one, must be content to remain an agnostic. So that's where we're going to have to put Darwin. And for our little biographical discussion of him, we can see where he came and how he got there, what were the motivating factors behind it. Now, we could take more time and drill down deeper into this and really see more about the thinking of Darwin and what caused him to move from his so-called theism to his agnosticism. But what I have done for the present is sufficient for us to understand that he's moved away from the biblical view of God and now has espoused the agnostic view of God, whereby he says, I don't know if God does exist or not. One thing we can say for Darwin, when he finishes with his theory, he says, you can't be a theist and espouse this particular view. So he's very clear on that. And now this is something that the theistic evolutionists should consider carefully. Darwin himself was saying, you can't espouse this matter of gradual change and graduation in species and at the same time be a theist. So he saw that. And then in turn, and I think some should see that today, Darwin was content to be an agnostic. But I want to talk a little bit about the evaluation of Darwin, and I need to talk about what's behind this matter and what he was trying to say. Darwin actually gave the scientific world probable cause for the origin of the species. We're going to look at it from Darwin's perspective, which is a biological kind of perspective. There are many different kinds of evolutionists today, but we're looking at Darwinism, and that's my subject. And so I'm going to look at it from his perspective and analyze that as best we possibly can. And so he's trying to say that this is how life came to be. Life came to be as a result of slow, gradual change. This, of course, is an incomplete description. Darwin's position is incomplete. It is quite changed from today, but that was the position that he took. Gradual development over long periods of time gave rise to the species and the forms of life that we know of today. The focus of the matter is change. How is it that these things change? How can this be about? All of the philosophical thought up to this time, from Aristotle all the way up to Darwin, is the idea that there's purpose behind the change. There's a reason behind the change. You see, Darwin wasn't the first to come up with this idea by any stretch, but yet he popularizes it better than anyone. But the point behind it is, here's a shift in the paradigm. It's a shift away from the typical way of looking at things. Whereas Aristotle would say, you know, a bird has wings for a reason. Now the evolutionists would say no. Darwin is saying no. There was no purpose behind the wings for the bird. It was by chance that the bird developed the wings. And so we come across two very important terms that we must distinguish in the beginning. The first term you'll see is microevolution. As the Greek language gives us these matters, the prefix, you'll know, means the very small form of evolution. That is the change within a species. Now what we're talking about is much more than just change. Though the Latin term evolution or evolve simply means to change. But everything changes. Mountains change, cities change, we get older and we get heavier and we get bolder as time changes. It's a type of evolvement, it's a type of evolution. But we mean much more than that. What he means by it is a microevolution. This change takes place within the species. And I don't have any problem with that, really. Within the species, we can see that certain changes have taken place, where a gene pool comes together, and certain genes, of course, become dominant over another, and so the species begins to change. Cattlemen have crossbred cattle and brought in new varieties of cattle, which is a change. But they're still cattle. There are varieties within the species. The cockapoo is a new kind of dog. My granddaughter loves the thing. I never heard of the thing because when I was her age, there weren't any cockapoos. But now there are. And they're the cutest little things you ever saw. And navel oranges. We have those, and that's one of my favorite things. Charolais cattle is another example of this matter of microevolution. Change within the species itself. Now this I don't have a problem with. I don't know of any creationist really that would see this as a difficulty. There are changes within the species. People are getting older, they're getting heavier, they're getting bolder, cattle are getting bigger. Through selective breeding, new varieties of dogs have been brought into the scene. And I think we can expect that. And really that looks a lot like God's divine design, fine-tune and hone a species whereby the gene pool can have certain genes that will change, subtle changes in the species and make the species stronger. It sounds like a lot of design as far as God's creation is concerned. So this adaptation with regard to in the species, microevolution, is not an issue. It's not something, you know, the size of the horse 1,000 years ago may be very different from the size of the horse that we have today, but it's still a horse. It's still within the species. It didn't change. And so Darwin came along and he looked at the adaptive changes, which he called natural selection, to strengthen and make stronger the species. And he said if these small changes can take place within a species, then surely large changes over long periods of time could take place, changing into other species, which is macroevolution. That I oppose totally. The micro, as you see on the left side of your screen, I accept. I think we have to accept that. No one is doubting the fact that things change within the species. But the macro, the word you see on the right side of your screen, is a different type of evolution altogether. That I object to totally. That denies the great God of the Bible. It denies the Word of God. It denies the fact that God created man from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life. Man became a living soul. No, macroevolution is saying that man owes his present form of life to the natural, unpurposeful, chance evolvement from lower forms of life to higher forms of life. And with that we draw our sabers and we say no. We're going to fight it out on the issue and let the facts be as they are. Now, George Gaylord Simpson, who is an avid macroevolutionist, says that evolution is fully natural process inherent in the physical properties of the universe, by which life arises in the first place, and by which all living things, past or present, have since developed divergently and progressively. Well, that's a lot of fancy language, isn't it? What he's talking about there is the idea. Life came about from lower forms of life to higher forms of life. It starts out with a more simple form of life, and it evolves and changes into a higher form of life to the point where you have a new kind of life altogether. Not only is the cockapoo a different kind of dog, now it's a different, the dog is no longer a dog, it's something else, and it actually evolves into something else. I'm going to evaluate it in a minute, so be patient with me, but I'm trying to lay the foundation so that we know exactly what we're talking about, and there'll be no question in anyone's mind about the matter. So let me illustrate this matter. Evolutionists come along and they say, well, the birds have wings in order to fly. And all of us would have looked at that and said, yeah, that's a purposeful matter of design. There's a good reason that birds have wings. It was designed that way. There's purpose behind it. But Darwin now begins to look at it differently and popularizes the idea there was no purpose behind it. It just happened that way. Actually, it started out as a kind of lizard. And there, as it began to change over hundreds of centuries, it begins to hatch out thousands of different little lizards. Some of them have bugged eyes, some of them have warts on their feet, and through this variation, they begin to develop and grow into the wing kind of structure. One of these, or several of these, began to slowly evolve into feathers. And as they began to grow the feathers and grow the wings, they now realized that they could flap their wings, and there in turn they had better opportunity to get better food. And because they had the better opportunity to get the better food, they grew stronger, and they could fly away from their enemies and preserve their species even better. And for that reason, it just so happened that they began to grow and develop these wings and feathers. Now the non-flappers, they died out. And they couldn't run and get away from their enemies. They couldn't get the better food supply. And so natural selection and adaptation has caused some to be preserved and some to be lost. And for that reason, this is a lucky accident that they have these wings and that they have these feathers. The change has nothing to do with purpose and design. The change has to do with an accident and no purpose and design. Now that's what we're talking about when we talk about macroevolution. We're talking about the general principle of evolution. Now when you look up the word evolution, you're going to find all kinds of different definitions. But this is Darwinism. Darwinism is the view that says life as we know it today, in its complex forms, changed over many millions of years into its present form. It slowly, gradually evolved and developed accidentally into the form that we have. There was no real purpose behind it. This means then, complex living things, all complex living things as we have them today, came from a simple life form, ultimately the cell. And that's what he was dealing with, was biological evolution, which in turn came from non-living matter. This is where the tree of life comes into play. And you will pick up all these high school biology books, and somewhere in this book, in this documentary, in this program about evolution, we're going to have this tree of life, this interrelated connection of the branches to the root. All the branches are related to the root, and the branches are related to each other, and there's no real meaningful difference between any of them. There is no real meaningful difference between you as a human being and the animal world, such as the ape or the chimpanzee or whatever kind of animal we might consider, because we're all part of the evolutionary tree. And the evolutionary tree has become a way of trying to explain the variety that we have. It all comes from a common ancestry, and in turn it is branched out into its various forms by means of macroevolution, taking various changes accidentally without any kind of purposeful relationship. Well, how shall we respond to these particular matters? Shall the child of God just simply say, well, that must be it, and we have to just suck it up and forget it, and we just have to just go by faith? No, the Bible doesn't put it that way. First of all, evolution is not a law. It is not a scientific law, as some would try to say. It was Mueller, a number of years ago, who tried to say that organic evolution is a scientific law. And he got 177 geneticists and scientists all to sign this statement saying that evolution, organic evolution, is now as certain as the rotundity of the earth. But this, upon analysis, is not scientific law. This that we have been studying very carefully upon analysis is not even a good theory. It is more of a hypothesis. Now, when you look at the scientific method, which science is based on, the scientific method is based on observation, experimentation, verification. We have to ask ourselves the question, where is the verification to make this a scientific law? If it is a scientific law, then we're going to have problems with the laws of thermodynamics and genetics and other laws which we have postulated. They're going to contradict each other and interfere with each other if we're going to make this theory a law. It is not scientific law. Robert Jasper has said that the evolutionist has simply got to take it on faith. It was Theodore Thomason, and I didn't write a note on this, but I have it in my notes. He says, now this is more of a con job than it is a law, though he is an evolutionist. And those who go around teaching it as a fact are more con men. It is more of a guessing game. It's more figure jangling. It's more speculation. Now I think he's being honest about the matter. This is not good science. No way can the scientific method handle material such as this or questions such as this. The scientific method, which is based on induction, deals with matters that it looks at, that it observes, and then it postulates a good guess, a hypothesis as to why it's so. And then it continues to replicate the matter and study the matter and see whether this guess works and fits the facts or not. And then by replicating the matter and verifying the facts over and over, he begins to postulate a theory. And then only after much explanation, experimentation, and observation empirically can one get to the point whereby he says this is a law. Well, evolution, as far as Darwin is concerned, and organic evolution, has seen none of that. There is no verification. There is no explication with regard to the matter. There is no experimentation on the matter. It is simply, as Clemenson said, it is speculation. They're speculating on what might have happened back there. And this is not science. When we're looking at the Darwinian view, we're not looking at a scientific method. The scientific method says, well, you've got to have observation, you've got to have experimentation, you've got to have verification in these particular matters.
But that is not available to us. No one was there. No one is able to observe. No one is able to go into the laboratory and take this flask and this yellow liquid and put it over a Bunsen burner and let it heat up and see the blue gas that comes off from it and then write those conclusions down. That's observation and verification. That's a scientific method at work. And let it be said that the scientific method has accomplished great things for us. And we are the beneficiaries of a great deal of the benefits of the scientific method. But the scientific method in our day has become the golden calf. The scientific method now is supposed to be the know-all and see-all and be-all of our world in which we live. This method is limited to what it can physically see and experience and replicate in the laboratory. And no one can do that with regard to the matter of origins, and no one can do that with regard to the change with regard to life. It's bad science. It's pseudoscience. And none of us should feel the pressure from the scientists about, well, I'm a scientist and I know these things. We should not be intimidated by means of the scientific community in which they try to foist upon us, we're scientists and we know all this fancy stuff, and we know that this came about this way. No, they don't. And no, we're not intimidated by that. But I'll talk more about that in a minute when I get to my third point. I'm still in the second point of evaluation. But I'd like to look at this in another perspective. Darwin begs the question. Now let me explain a little bit about begging the question. And it's pretty important that we understand that matter. And I hope that you'll always be alert to the issue of begging the question. Begging the question is when you assume something you need to prove. And you can beg the question a number of different ways. You can define the term or the expression by itself, and evolution is trying to do that. In other words, a good man is a man who is good. And so you beg the question. You really haven't proven to us who or what a good man is. You simply assert what one is. You point to it. You may beg the question by setting forth a proposition as being true, which first needs to be proven to be true. Students of the Bible do not need to waste their time studying literature and philosophy and the fine arts. For such a study would be a waste of time. Well, you've got to prove that such a study would be a waste of time before you could have an argument to say Bible students shouldn't be doing that. You first got to prove. You're begging the question. You're assuming what must be proven. One may reason in a circle and beg the question. In other words, we want more automobiles on our roads. Who in the world would want that? But at any rate, it's my illustration. We need more automobiles on the road because we need more tax money so that we can build more roads in order to have more automobiles on the road. That's reasoning in the circle. You've got to prove what you want in order to use it as evidence. And atheists and evolutionists do that. One may simply imply that the issue under discussion has been settled and then shift the attention away from that to another issue, but it is only relevant when the initial issue has been proven. Let me explain what I mean by that. I'm talking about begging the question and how you can do it. And this is their problem, logically speaking. Evolution is a gigantic begging of the question. Well, you come to me and you say, I'd like to borrow your car for the weekend. And I politely say, no, you can't have my car for the weekend. And then the weekend comes and you come to me and say, well, what kind of gas do you want me to put in your car when I borrow your car this weekend? Well, we haven't established that you're going to get the car this weekend. You've shifted the discussion away from the relevant issue to another issue, but that issue depends upon the relevant issue for its substance. You beg the question. My point tonight is evolution does that. They beg the question, where is the change that goes from a lower form of life to a higher form of life? We all accept microevolution. But just because there's microevolution doesn't mean that there is macroevolution. Where is the change that actually brings about this difference between life forms. I don't mean accidental features. Philosophers talk about, well, the eye color and the hair color and the skin color. These are all accidental features. He's still a person. Where is the change that brings about that lower form of life? Here he's an animal, but now he's a human being. Well, there's no such evidence. It's not there. And let me tell you something. No one's ever claimed to have seen that. No one has ever documented seeing that. No one has ever written in a book anywhere where they say, well, one time ago, some guy said he saw that way back in the back. Nobody's ever seen that. It is not there. It begs the question. I was in public debate with one of these fellows one time in San Antonio, Texas. And he kept getting up to the microphone in University of San Antonio. And he kept getting up to the microphone. And he kept saying, now if you just grant me this, that the world is 60 billion years old, then I will be able to say, and I would go back and say, I'm not willing to grant it. I'm not going to grant that. I don't believe it. Where's the evidence for it? We'll talk about it if we see evidence for the matter. This is one of the big issues of Darwinism. Where's the transition species? Where is it? This is where the discussion of geology comes in. And we begin to talk about the matter of the fossil record. But before I get to that, I want us to understand that we have a real logical problem in reasoning. I didn't have to be a scientist to see this. All I had to be able to do was reason about it properly. And I can see that there is a logical inconsistency and a problem here. Any position which involves itself in a logical contradiction is itself a false position. We have reasoned about it incorrectly, and we have drawn the wrong conclusion. And that's what we have here. This is a gigantic begging of the question. And if we just fall back and say, well, okay, yeah, maybe this thing changed over time, it became that, then we have given them the day. And I'm not willing to do that. I don't know where that evidence is. They don't know where the evidence is. There is no evidence in lower forms of life evolving into a human being. That's not there. It never has been there. And I'll tell you why it's not there. Because God didn't do it that way. God created man from the dust of the ground, as I cited a moment ago, from Genesis chapter 2, verse 7 and verse 8. You see, it's hard for me to speak just very casually about this. I cannot speak about this from a mere vacuum. It means too much. There's too much at stake here for us to just be clinical about the matter. Though we don't want to be overly emotional about the matter, still it is not something that we can just look at and aseptically. We've got to put our heart and soul into the truths of this matter and know that God did bring these matters about. Darwin admits geology assuredly does not reveal any such finely graduated organic change, and this is perhaps the most obvious and serious objection which can be urged against the theory of evolution, page 152. But I want to hurry along, and I want to talk about this fallacy right here. And that will get me into the fossil record, which I want to spend just a few moments about, and not to be confusing, but to help us see where this enters into the total discussion. Now we're looking at microevolution. Simply because microevolution does take place, which I grant, does not mean that macroevolution takes place. That's a false analogy. We would try to simply say that simply because this subtle change happens in this variety, in this species, does not automatically mean that that's going to cause a transition in that species to a higher species, to another kind of animal altogether. You see, new creatures are not coming up and not being evolved by lower creatures. It's not happening that way. Darwin admits the fossil record is very incomplete. He admits on page 161 that there ought to be an infinite number of those fine transitional forms which, on our theory, he says, have connected all the past and present species of the same group into one long and branching chain of life. All I got to do is for him Not only is the fossil record and the steps missing, but the whole chain ain't there. Excuse my Tennessee language. The chain's not there. What you have in the fossil record, and we don't have the opportunity to talk all about it tonight, but the fossil record is a record which shows animals fully formed and then they die out. And here is another strata. Fully formed animals. There are no transitional, gradual developments into other higher forms of life, which you would expect if that is what actually happened. The fossil record helps us understand what did happen as opposed to speculating as to what might happen. And that is hands-on evidence. That is physical evidence, demonstrable evidence there that a scientist can look at and there in turn consider what actually take place. Now this guy here, Frederick Coyle, is a brilliant guy. He got off on the wrong track. He was anointed knight or something by the Queen of England for all of his work in these particular matters. The evolutionary record leaks like a sieve. When I read that from Sir Frederick Coyle, I thought that is something that needs to be expressed. And then Stephen Jay Gould, who is an evolutionist. The extreme rarity of transitional forms. You see the graduation from one animal to the next in the fossil record persists as the trade secret of paleontology. They do not want to admit that. They in turn have to give up on the fossil record as a scientific means of verifying the general theory of evolution. So what do they do? Well, they'll change the deal. We're going to call it a punctuated equilibria. The punctuated equilibria idea is another fancy new organic evolution position which tries to say they didn't gradually come up, they just all of a sudden came in there. And then they started to change, and then they got out, and then all of a sudden they came in there again. The punctuated equilibria. But that sounds a lot more like the Christian position, where God created all at one time in 6 24-hour days. Therefore, the fossil record points to two things. Number one, it says that the species do not exhibit directional change during their tenure on Earth. We would expect that. We would expect these fossil records to show a little gradual change here and keep getting better, and keep getting better, and keep getting better. But it doesn't show that. They appear in the fossil record looking much the same as when they disappeared. Morphological change is usually limited and directionless. There is no lower to higher direction in the phyla, in the fossil record. There is sudden appearance in any local area. A species does not arise gradually by the steady transformation of its ancestors. It appears all at once, which is what the Bible is telling us. Now, my wife and I, she studied geology, and I had to run a lot of these words by her, and she understands a lot of these things, and she loves rocks. I personally don't get it myself, but she can see more in a rock than anybody can perceive. And she loves picking up rocks and collecting rocks. And she'll tell me what kind of rock this is, and all about this rock. And we go throughout the West picking up rocks. And where we can, we bring them back. And we have a lot of rocks in our backyard from different parts of the world. Karen, bless her heart, wants to bring those rocks back. And so I say, yes, dear, and I put them in a box, and I bring them back. We were on a trip, one of these rock collecting trips in Glacier National Park. And the guide there, we got a big, nice auditorium, and we've got beautiful seating, and it's nice, and we've been walking, and we've been hiking, and I'm happy to sit down in this cushioned chair in this air-conditioned building, and this guy's got a big ranger hat on. He starts talking about the age of the earth. But he made a mistake. He asked, "Are there any questions?" I said, "Sir, I have a question." And so we went back and forth and back and forth. He was very nice, and so was I. It was very clear that he was thinking about this. I said, you know, that Grand Canyon thing, and Mount St. Helens, and how that the geologic landscape changed within hours. I saw it. I saw it on television. When that volcano went up, it changed the geologic landscape for 100 miles, and it did it within a week. It didn't take 100 million years to do that. And he folded his arms up. He thought about that, and thought about that. And I could tell the wheels were really turning, because there were a lot of people that probably lived there. It doesn't take millions and millions of years. God created it, and he brought about a great devastating flood that no doubt changed the geologic look of our world for the rest of our time. I must press along and ask, why do they believe it? And this is my third section tonight, where I'm going to talk about our response to these matters and how do we respond to it. They believe it because they've been brainwashed. They have been told that this is true so much they begin to believe it. And they're thinking, well, since Darwin said this and he's really a smart guy, a massive campaign's gone out into the Western world, the intellectual marketplace, to accept and espouse evolutionary propaganda. The Scopes trial, where I was involved in a discussion, Dayton, Tennessee. I was invited to discuss this particular matter with evolutionists, and which I did. I stood in the courthouse. I stood where William Jennings Bryan stood and where Clarence Darrow stood, defending the existence of God and the creationist view. But it was during the Scopes trial that really popularized the matter in July 1925. And in that particular instance, Tennessee had what was called the Butler Law, which forbade anyone teaching anything other than a creationist view. Well, this young fellow at the time did that. And of course, you'll remember the plays and all of that. It popularized the notion of evolution. Media and public school systems have promoted this idea to such an extent that we have brainwashed our children and indoctrinated our children into these particular matters. Many people believe this because they've been intimidated. Intimidation. They think, well, this is science and this is a law. H.J. Mueller, you'll remember, said this in 1966, and you got all these special scientists buying into this particular matter, this fallacy of authority, you see. They in turn have said, this is the way it is. And so people have been intimidated by that. Actually, they have PhD degrees. And when you get a PhD, everybody knows that's your license to be omniscient. And you know everything now. And if you doubt that, just write a book about it. And now you know everything. And they're intimidated by that kind of false authority. I believe religious confusion has brought about part of our problem. Because people have forgotten the original. Because they have forgotten the genuine article, they have embraced and gone after these false views and these false religions, and that does not authenticate evolution. You have the problems of Islam today. You have the other issues, the isms that you're going to study throughout this Wednesday night series of studies. All of these have contributed to this particular matter because a departure from the original does not negate the genuineness of the original, the Word of God. The randomness of religions does not authenticate evolution. But I really think much of it goes to this particular matter here, as we should address it properly. It is a scientific escape from responsibility. Let me tell you something. God created us and He gave us souls, which distinguishes us from everything else, making man the apex of God's creative work in the book of Genesis and in the Garden of Eden. And even though He created all of those wonderful things, man is the crescendo of creation. And He gave man soul. And He's going to hold man responsible for how he lives. And the atheist, the skeptic, the evolutionist says, no, I don't want to have to be responsible. I don't want to have to be responsible to God. I got a reasonable position now that says I don't have to have God. But God's going to hold us responsible for how we live. Mm-hmm. Every man, woman, boy, and girl, accountability is going to stand before God some great day. Now think about it. You got to stop and think about it. It's a sobering thought. Knowing the terror of the Lord, we persuade men, Paul said in 2 Corinthians chapter 5. Mm-hmm. We're going to give an account for everything we said and everything we've done. Because God holds us responsible. What shall I do? Repent of my sins. Acknowledge the need for me to be submissive to God that man is not God, but a creation of God. Admit that Jesus is the Son of God, and live according to the teaching of Jesus Christ. First of all, by being baptized into Christ for the remission of sins. There in turn, receiving the benefits of the blood of Christ. That's Paul's point in Romans chapter 6, 4 through 6. Receive the benefits of the death of Jesus, the atonement, the propitiation, by obeying the gospel of Christ, and by being buried in water for the remission of sins. Rise up to walk in newness of life. Be added to the church that you read about in the pages of the Bible. Let me tell you something, brother. And you've listened so very patiently. Thank you for that. This old Tennessee preacher, and that's all I ever claimed to be. Now is not the time to compromise on the truths of God's Word. Amen. Now is not the time to give in to the teaching of error. Now is the time. The challenge is before us to stand up and say, "No, wait a minute, we need to analyze that properly. We know what the truth is." God's wonderful church. Sometimes I think we need to stop and consider the wonderful challenge that God has set before us, and not quiver and quake and hide like the soldiers of Saul, but be David's. I say, we're not going to let that giant down there in that valley talk that way about God. I don't need that armor. I haven't tried it. But God's on my side. I'm going to go down that valley. I'm going to fight that good fight. And with God with it, He beat that giant. And with God with us and His truth on our side, we will beat this giant. We can refute this giant with truth. And let God's Word shine forward. That's our purpose. Let us be a city set on a hill. Let men see our good works. Not that they would pat ourselves on the back, but that they would glorify our Father which is in heaven. Now's the time in the day of challenge to stand up as the people of God together with the Word of God. Say, I know that the great God of the Bible does exist, and that the Bible is His Word, and His Son Jesus is the Christ, where all men are to obey Him out of obedient faith, to repent of their sins and confess Him, be baptized into Christ for the remission of sins, and rise up and walk as children of God. Rise up and walk as new children, Christian people, as a result of the new birth. And if there's someone here tonight who's not a child of God, I hope you'll become one. And I hope you won't become enamored with this special theory of Darwinism. But be enamored with the Christ of God, who came and gave His life for us. Won't you come? While together we stand.